Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast. This is a podcast where we look at important topics in business and life and break them down in a fun and lighthearted way. And we also get to learn and live our best life, you know? What a strange intro I've started with today. But that's how we're just going to kick it off in 2025, you know? We're a bit more freewheeling. Speaking of freewheeling, Danette, how are you going this week? You've been traveling a little bit and teaching a little bit, I understand.
I have been traveling and teaching, and my goodness, it's hot and muggy back at the farms. I had nearly a week on the road. Very, very happy to be back at home and in my bed for 2 nights. And then off again tomorrow, traveling again. But life is good, can't complain. And we needed the rain. We got, in the last week, 4.5 inches of rain at the farm.
Holy
so
moly.
the tank is overflowing. Awesome.
Well, and Danette, did you teach any specific courses this week at all?
Gosh, I'm doing a lot on unconscious bias at the moment and a little bit around finance as well. So doing some quite different types of training, but fun.
Very nice. Well, great to have you on and great to see you this week. It was always a pleasure. Grahame, how are you going this week? How's things?
Hi, Jess. Hey, everyone. Yeah, things are good. It's certainly not hot and muggy here. I'm up in Canberra at the moment trying to keep an eye on Dad and doing a poor job of that. So I'm just waiting on... I've ordered an air tag so I can attach it to his mobility scooter, so I have some idea of just approximately where he is in the neighbourhood he gets around. Yeah, I'm dreading the day when he realises that if he pulls up behind a truck or a van that's got a grab handle on the back whilst it's stationary, that he could literally just hang onto that. Dad, if you're watching this, that was not an instruction. I'm good, Tess. Good to be glad to be here. Glad to be back. Thanks.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And that move in Tony Hawk Pro Skater is known as skitching. So let's hope your dad doesn't really get into the skitching culture of skateboarding.
Perhaps just edit this part out.
Well, great to have you on, Grahame. Always a pleasure to see you. And Darren, our guest, Darren Fleming, how are you going this week?
I'm very well, thank you. Last trip of the year this week was to Melbourne, worked with Australia Post over there, and now coming back and putting plans in place for the start of the year.
Very exciting. The year that we are now currently in.
Yes.
That's just a wink, wink, nod, nod, because we're actually recording this at the end of 2024.
We had one task. Don't mention the year.
So, Darren, before we dive into this amazing conversation, and this is a really good companion podcast to another podcast you've done with Danette on the Adapt with Danette FM feed, where you've already had a sort of discussion about this, but we're diving into it a bit more deeply today, and with a different lens. But if people haven't quite caught that episode yet, do you want to just give people a little introduction to, new listeners who may be being introduced to you for the first time?
Yeah, I am a behavioural scientist, and I wrote the book Mindset Mastery. The premise of the book is, I reckon everyone spends most of the day fighting themselves. And if we stop doing that, we're going to be less stressed when we go home. We're going to be more relaxed in the moment, and we can be more productive. And we can unpack that as we go through the next hour or so.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I'm going to get into this with my question, but what you've done with this book is really fascinating because it blends so many different elements. It's not just a business book. It's not just a life book. It's got lots of different bits and pieces to it. So it's a very interesting way that you've connected a lot of these things. So we're very excited to have you on. But I think to really highlight this conversation, just to set us up, I think, Danette, we got to go to you. Danette, you've always got more than one question. So tell us a bit about your questions and why you chose them.
Well, my first one, I figured that there'd be a number of listeners and viewers who may not have heard of Mindset Mastery before. So I thought we'd start with what is Mindset Mastery, and then I'll follow up once you finish that, Darren.
Sure. Mindset Mastery is the ability to maintain mental stability and equanimity regardless of what's going on around you. Captain Jack Sparrow said it perfectly. He said, your problem is not the problem. Your problem is your reaction to the problem. Get it? So Mindset Mastery, what it does is it shows you how to keep a calm and equanimous mind while the world around you is turning to poo, so you can make the next best decision for where you are.
Love that answer. That's really, really good. So
And if you can quote Jack Sparrow, it's got to be a good answer.
I know. Jack Sparrow's just awesome. So our next question is, why is it important? So you've explained a little bit about that, but maybe give some examples of where it is really important to be calm and equanimous, however you say that word.
Equanimous.
Equanimous.
Equanimity.
Yeah, thank you.
A real life example. We've just moved into this house. We've been in this house 2 weeks, 2 weeks and 2 days, I think. We've had to sell my apartment. We're selling my partner's house. We're moving in. We have to then renovate the garage to make it my office, and she has to build a auxiliary dwelling out the back so she can work from there. We've got banks, we've got real estate agents, conveyancers, moving house from 2 dwellings to 1. We've got kids that are being disrupted, still same schools, etc. But the pressure of that is actually quite high. And what we have both noticed we're able to do is to just simply deal with the next step that's in front of us. We're not going to stress about the settlement that's happening next week and has the bank got the money sorted, and it's just, okay, this is the next step we need to focus on. Let's just focus on this one. So many people in all areas of life work on a problem in 2 weeks' time and stress about that when there's 15 to do before that, and therefore they don't do those 15 well. I think it was Groucho Marx or some other stale pale male who said, "My life has been full of bad things, most of which never happened." Because we keep stressing about things that we don't need to.
Yep.
Mindset Mastery stops that.
I love that. Can't wait to hear the rest of this conversation. Thank you, Darren.
Pleasure.
Darren, I love that. I love that it started with Captain Jack Sparrow as a mindset mastery thing. A guy who's always finding himself in predicaments, but I do appreciate that he has a great attitude to them. So it's a great place to start. I might go to Alan's question now. So Alan's written this one in, and Alan's question was, what are some of our predictable thinking patterns that we may not be aware of?
Yeah. There's really only 2 predictable thinking patterns, or there are 2 thinking patterns. We want something we don't have, or we don't want what we do have. So I want something I don't have. I'm at work, I'm working on this report, I want to be on holidays. And what is happening, because I've got a holiday coming up in 2 weeks' time, I keep focusing on that, I'd rather be on this holiday, as opposed to working on the report in front of you. So that is wanting something that I don't have. The other thing is not wanting what I do have. Well, it's Saturday morning, I've got to clean the pool. I don't want to do this. Now, it doesn't get the pool clean any faster. In fact, it probably makes it take longer. And because we keep complaining about it, we don't get it done as quickly as we could. They are the 2 thinking patterns that drive just about everybody. You listen to anyone, they will be wanting something they don't have or not wanting what they do have.
That is really fascinating. And this makes me think of, does this have much to do with procrastination? Does that fit into this at all?
Yeah, procrastination is, so because of those 2 things, normally not wanting what I do have will generate procrastination. So there's a task you've got to do. Let's say it is a salesperson. They know as a sales rep, they have to make 10 cold calls a week. They've got to be done by Friday. And Monday morning, do you make them then? No, you kick them down the road. I'll do them tomorrow. You procrastinate. So what happens then is come Thursday morning, damn, I've got to do these calls. What you do is you negotiate. I know what, I'll make 5 calls, then I will take half an hour off to have a coffee and a bit of doom scrolling, then I'll make some more. And that kind of makes sense until you ask 2 questions. A, who are you negotiating with? And B, why are you never happy with the outcome? Okay, I've decided I will do this. So, how's that going to help your mindset? So you negotiate, you procrastinate, then you negotiate, then you get a due date. Oh, it's Friday morning, they've got to be done by midday, and you just sit there, I've just got to do these, smile and dial. And you reach through to someone, they pick up the phone, you go through your spiel. The person at the other end knows you're just going through the motions and nothing happens. So you procrastinate, negotiate, you put a due date on it. What Mindset Mastery allows you to do is to deactivate. Because the reason we don't want to do these activities is where there is a sensation in our body, a feeling that we don't like. Sitting down to do the calls Monday morning, I don't like that feeling. I'll procrastinate, get rid of the feeling. So Mindset Mastery shows you how to deactivate that feeling so you don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, wow. It's a great insight there, Darren. And as someone who does like to procrastinate and doom scroll and have a coffee over half an hour, this definitely rings very true. So I appreciate this.
Yeah. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying don't do those things. I'm saying if you're going to do them through choice as opposed to avoidance of something else.
Well, that's great. We'll touch on this a little bit more, but I want to throw over to Grahame now. Grahame, did you have a question about mindset mastery?
Probably one of the first questions that jumped out at me was, could we invite Darren to participate in the remainder of this podcast, imitating Captain Jack? I mean, in terms of his voice. But it's a tough call. I was just thinking before, I wonder, not that I was disengaged from the podcast at all, but why is it that so many people can impersonate or attempt to impersonate people like Christopher Walken, but very, very few go for Captain Jack? I'm not sure what that is. But there's some procrastination in there. Is that what it is? Well, that would explain it. Or a rum.
Solved over red wine or rum.
Or rum. Possibly not both. The point you made just a few seconds ago, Darren, about deactivating the feelings in our body to deal with our procrastination. The fact that there's something inside us that we don't like, it doesn't feel good, and it prevents us from taking a particular step forward or taking an action. And with this concept of mindset mastery, and from your perspective, how important is it for us to become more consciously aware of what's going on in our body?
Oh, it's up there with breathing.
Is that important? Yeah.
Well, only if you want to make it through the next 10, 20 minutes.
Okay.
Unless, of course, you're Wim Hof, you may not, but that's another story. We have a brain-body instrument, and I would suggest 99.999% of people are unaware of what's going on in their brain-body instrument at any one time. They're so unaware that if you said, okay, can you focus your attention on your left foot, on the little toe, one in from the little toe? So go to your left foot. Can you feel the whole toe? Can you feel the skin between your toes? Can you feel the pad? And what that's about is people simply not aware of the sensations happening in their body. They're getting around this all the time. The reason this is important is Carl Jung said, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to turn up in life and we will call it fate. The unconscious is stored in the body and it is constantly just there as an energy. Now, if we're not aware of these energetic movements inside our body, how can we consciously deal with them? We're not consciously dealing with them, but we are from a subconscious view. An example, you walk into a room, you see that person, see your ex, and it was a bad breakup. You have this energetic sensation inside your body that you feel. That's an obvious one. But they're there for many other things as well. I don't know why, I just get this bad feeling about that other person. There's an energetic sensation. Your triggers, your programming has been triggered. If you're not aware of that, you can't make informed decisions because you're not aware of it. And you'll wonder why that person... And then what we do is we create a story to explain why we feel this way about that person. That story is created wholly within our head and has nothing to do with actual situations. And we know that because we have conversations and I thought you were doing this. No, I wasn't doing that. It's just your story.
Thank you. It also reminded me of one of Danette's comments earlier about doing some training earlier in the week around unconscious bias.
Mm.
And the relationship with that. But I do value the point about the brain-body instrument.
Connection instrument,
yeah. Connection. It's just, because I think for a long time, we were sort of led to believe, maybe we chose to believe that they were completely separate. Our brain's in our body in a manner of speaking, but they don't get on together.
We can thank our friend Descartes for that. He, in the 1600s, he wanted to chop up the bodies to understand what was going on. But of course, the church would have jumped up and down, so he was pretty clever. He turned around and said to the church, the mind, that is where the soul lives, so that's clearly the realm of the church. And as we all know, the body sins, so it must not be of God. Therefore, you have the brain, I'll have the body, and that's where science progressed. And he was the first dualist. Scary to think there's really only 20, 30, maybe 40 years that the idea that the brain-body is actually a one unit. Hopefully, we will get to the point one day where people see that it's not just the brain-body that is one unit, It's what's on this side of the skin, and also on the other side of the skin is one unit, i.e. we are part of our environment and our environment is part of us. When we get to that level of thinking, we might stop poisoning the planet. Yeah, I'm not holding my breath.
Well, no, that wouldn't be a helpful thing based on the conversation we've just had. But there you go. Thanks, Darren. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, Darren, I think your last answer has really led into my question really nicely because you've touched on a couple of different things, a little bit of philosophy in some ways with Descartes, a little bit of therapy with Jung and bits and pieces. And I noticed as I was reading your book, you've blended in a lot of different ways, a lot of different bits of wisdom from different walks of life. And I think that it's really fascinating how you've combined them. So for me, my question is, in your book, you mix a lot of wisdom, which in my mind is information that's applicable across different contexts. I think, for me, even though I'm not a Christian, I still think that the golden rule of treat your neighbor as you want to be yourself, that's wisdom because it's not literally Jesus talking about his next door neighbor. It's wisdom that we can use any time, even though, again, I said, I'm not necessarily religious. I just think it's a good bit of wisdom. So I guess for me, combining all this together, how did you come across this kind of wisdom for this book, where it's where it's coming from, and how did you decide to frame it through a non-fiction book about mindset mastery? How did the choice to make it into a book come about?
Yeah, how the book is designed to get people interested. There is a great yearning for this sort of information at the moment. The fastest growing religious sect, it's measured by census, in the US, and I think it's Australia as well, is SBNR, spiritual but not religious. And that's what this book tries to tap into. I've always been of the opinion that I grew up in the Catholic education system and went to Sunday school and Sunday Mass, and I always remember looking at it going, this is just control, that's all it is. And I threw the baby out with the bathwater, and I just went, no, complete atheist, that's all crap. Life goes on, you mature, you start reading in different areas, and you realise that the Bible and church are two completely separate things. And when you get your head across that, you can understand that the Bible is actually a really powerful document. Edward Goddard wrote, he's got a bunch of books. You can get the Edward Goddard Reader. He states that, and he's writing in the 1950s, 60s, he said, what if the Bible is not a historic account of Jesus? It's not a historic account of what went on in a certain period of time. But what if it is instructions on how to use the brain? You take statements like, be still and know that I am God, becomes Darren, be still and know that Darren is God, and Jez, be still and know Jez is God. When you take that attitude, it's, oh my God. And if you read through his book, I've read the book or listened to the book once or twice, it's mind-blowing. It just gives you a whole different view on it. I remember getting into this sort of information when I was in year 9 at school, year 8 it would have been. I was sitting on the bus on the way to school in Western Sydney, so living in Moorebank, going out to Liverpool Patrician Brothers, reading a book, How Your Brain Works. Mid-80s, Western Sydney. Yep, I got beat up at lunch for it. But I've just always been fascinated in it. When I left school, I went to seminars on Hindu spiritual teachings as applied in the Western society, on how to use Hindu teachings. And when I've got myself a degree in psychology, and when COVID hit, it gave me the opportunity to stop and just do reading on everything I could get my hands on. And I now go around and training it. And the book makes it accessible to people. People buy it at the end of my conference, at the end of my keynotes and workshops.
Very nice. Well, maybe they can read it on their way to Liverpool in Western Sydney and get beaten up in their own time.
No, they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, that's
thankfully.
True. Well, Darren, thank you so much for that. Great insight. And I definitely feel like I've had a similar journey to you. I think I went from atheist to this acronym that I've already forgotten, but
SBNR, spiritual but not religious.
Yeah, I find it's an interesting journey. I'm going to jump into Allegra's question here. So Allegra's written, what part of mindset mastery is habits and understanding why we do what we do subconsciously?
I'm a bit of a contrarian in all my IP. I reckon 99.9% of society has got it wrong, and habits and discipline are examples of that. So discipline and habits are about a cage that keeps you within a very small area. So discipline is about ensuring you don't do what you want to do, or you do what you don't want to do. I've got the discipline to go to the gym. Damn it, I don't want to do it, but I'm disciplined and I will. So I'm going to be grumpy and go and do something because apparently it's good for me. I would suggest having that attitude is far worse for you than not going to the gym. So I don't believe in discipline. I believe in choice. I don't believe in habits because, as James Clear says in his book, habits are a set of unconscious behaviours you perform without thinking. I don't know about you, but I want my staff to be thinking and they're doing their actions. So habits and disciplines are very much not part of mindset mastery. So how do you get stuff done? You live at choice. I choose to do this or I choose to not do this. And there's no guilt associated with that. And trust me, growing up Catholic, it took me a long while to get over that. But if you can live at choice, I can choose to stay in bed, or I can actually go choose to get up and go do what it is that I wish to do. Now, there'll be people listening to this who are thinking, oh yeah, but tomorrow morning when I'm at choice, I might not want to get out of bed. Well, maybe not, but that could be the first day you've ever tried it. It's a muscle. You build it up.
Wow. Once again, great insights. It's so interesting. I feel like it's like flipping my mind live. So I'm trying to still understand what you've just said.
So if we can dive into that deeper, it may help you understand where the term that we've mentioned a couple of times, deactivate, comes from. If you want to have a discipline, for argument's sake, to do something, you must be going against something. So I have a discipline to go to the gym. Okay, there is something saying don't go to the gym. What is that? Don't go to the gym. And your discipline has to be stronger than the resistance. In War of Art, Stephen Pressfield actually talks about the concept of resistance. Great book, but he doesn't tell you how to overcome the resistance. And that was one of the things that always stuck in my mind when I read that book. And this is the methodology on how to overcome that resistance. That resistance is experienced as a sensation in your body. Okay, the alarm goes off. It's 6 a.m. I've got to get up and go to the gym. You feel a resistance to staying in bed. You need discipline to overcome that resistance. So this is where I mentioned at the start. People spend their day fighting themselves. There's a feeling saying don't go, and you go, well, I got to go. So you haven't got out of bed and you've already had your first fight. How's that going to work for the day? So instead of having discipline to overcome that resistance, how about we let the resistance deactivate itself? Now, one of the things the Buddha said is nothing in the universe lasts forever. Everything is impermanent. And the buildings that we are all in, there was a time in the past when they weren't here. There will be a time in the future when they're not here. And I would suggest in 70 years' time, none of us will be alive, and the platform that this is on won't be here either. Even our sun's only got 5 billion years left in it. Nothing is permanent. That's got to apply to that sensation in your body as well. So you're lying in bed, don't want to go to the gym, pay attention to that sensation that is saying don't go to the gym. Just observe it, see what it does. It will deactivate. Then it will deactivate to the point where you don't have to have discipline to overcome it. You can be at choice. I will get up and go to the gym, or I'm going to roll over and go back to sleep. And that choice is entirely yours. But what happens is you roll over and go back to sleep. When you wake up an hour or so later, you're not racked with guilt. Oh, I didn't go to the gym, because that energy is not there.
That was actually, you must have been somewhere near me this morning, Darren, because at 4 o'clock this morning, my alarm went off and I'm like, because it woke me out of a dead sleep. And I was like, do I do my meditation? I'm like, I'll just close my eyes for 5 minutes. I reset the alarm. And then I was like, I'm awake, so I may as well do it. And so I did it.
Yeah. And that's when I sit for an hour every morning, and it's often around the 4:30, because I wake up, go to the toilet, and I go, well, I've got the alarm set for 5:30, or I could do it now and then sleep at the end.
Darren, can I ask just quickly, just to continue this, just one more question down, is in deciding those things, how much of that has to do with, I mean, I guess this kind of goes back to Graham's question a little bit of understanding some of the sort of subconscious feelings that you've sort of touched on, and they're going to be influencing what I want to do and what have you. What degree of these decisions is to do with like almost like a long-term idea of what I might want to achieve in my life versus just a short-term thing, or does that not even factor in at all?
I don't think it really factors into it. I said last night when I get up, I'm going to go to the gym. Do I want to be someone who keeps my word to myself? Yes, I do. No, I don't. Normally I would, but actually I just want to roll over and go back to sleep. Because you get that going back to sleep sometimes is actually the better thing for your health.
Great. Yeah. So fascinating. Well, let's jump into the Kanika's question here. Kanika's asked, what are some signs that someone does not have much mindset mastery?
Can I be a bit radical here?
You can do whatever you want.
Yes. You've got to have a good headline, so I'll give you the good headline. They say, I've got ADHD brain. Okay? So my position, a lot of ADHD isn't. It is simply they have not learned how to control their brain-body instrument. Now, there are people, often in kids, who have these uncontrollable things, but it's our phones that have caused it in most people. So we are literally all addicted to our phones, okay? What's the first thing you touch in the morning when you wake up? Previous generations, it was themselves. Now it's a phone. So we wake up, we touch a dopamine delivery device. Dr. Anna Lemke, her book, Dopamine Nation, unpacks in the first 2 chapters just how insidious it is that we are all addicted to our devices. If we go back pre-iPhone, early 2000s and before, we only ever got to access our favourite things, sport, cooking, hobbies, whatever, once or twice a week. On the weekend, I'd go sailing, and midweek, I'd go to the gym. Now I can access that all the time, every time, which means I'm getting that hit of dopamine all the time. So in the past, I used to go sailing, get a dopamine that took me from, say, 0 up to 10, where 10 is orgasmic feeling. It'd take me up to 6, 7, 8, some would say 10, but I would only get that on Saturday, maybe Sunday. Now I can go online and watch all of the YouTube videos on sailing that I want. So I'm sitting at a constant 5. So when I go sailing, my new baseline is 5, not 0 where it was. I go sailing and have one of those awesome runs. I'm only getting an increase of 5. Sailing just doesn't do it for me anymore. You're not getting the growth. So I'm not quite sure what the question was. So what is happening is about how do we know someone doesn't have mindset mastery? They're flicking all over the place. They have not learned the skill of paying attention to one thing. The reason they haven't paid attention to one thing is because we're constantly getting dopamine and we want to go to that. So when someone says, I've got ADHD, you need to be aware that the DSM-5, which is what has the criteria for ADHD, has pharmaceutical companies sitting on the board that write the papers. They may very well have a drug they wish to push. So that could be it. If you go to the gym and you can't lift the weights, do you go to the doctor and say, give me some steroids so I can lift it? No. If you go to the doctor and say, if you try to sit down and do some work and you can't concentrate, do you go to the doctor and say, give me some drugs so I can? No, you practice concentrating.
Yeah, this is so fascinating. Again, because I've been thinking about this a little bit myself, to be honest, Darren, in terms of entertainment. And when we think about entertainment these days, so much of that involves a screen. But if you go back 100 years, that can't be the case because there weren't screens. So what was entertainment back then? And it's like, playing a piano or, doing, some arts and crafts or reading or things like that. So yeah, this really high intensity dopamine stuff is very kind of new, and it's not very human. So it's not surprising.
And it's not very understood because if we go back 100 years or even like pre-Y2K, when we got together with entertainment, it was about oxytocin, which is the feel-good around people drug. Now it's around dopamine, which is a drug of addiction because I want more of it. So our entertainment is a fundamentally different chemical experience.
Yeah, very fascinating. Well, the last sort of submitted question we have here is from Marg. And Marg asks, what are some tips for giving your kids awareness and practice in mindset mastery?
Yeah. And this is not just for kids. This is for everybody. Spend some time every day, and 10 minutes is a good time to start, focusing on the air coming in and out of your nose. Okay, just feel the air coming over the tip of your nose. Now, this is an awareness exercise, not a breathing exercise. Now, the difference is, one is I'm paying attention to what the air feels like. With a breathing exercise, I'm trying to control my breath. My breath is something that it is, and I want something different. Oh, does that sound like a thought pattern that underlies most of the problems? Don't go for something different. Go for what is. And just breathe as you need to. If you just run through the front door and you're sitting down doing this exercise, you're breathing really fast. Just pay attention to it. Accept what is and do that for 10 minutes. Now, what's going to happen is, I reckon the first time you do this, within about 1 to 2 milliseconds, your brain is going to go away. And it's going to take you 9.5 minutes to realise to bring it back. And then you're going to go, oh, damn it. Awesome. Next time you do it, it's going to be about, 0.4 of a millisecond. Hopefully it'll come back within 9 minutes. So you're getting longer paying attention, and you're becoming aware that you're not paying attention more quickly. When I started my meditation journey, and I'm going back like 30 years, I used to think I was no good at meditating. I can't meditate, it just doesn't work for me. Because I would sit down there and my mind would not stop. Funny, meditation is the only exercise where people want part of their body to stop. I've never once come across a person saying, I was trying to do an activity and my heart just would not stop. My lungs won't stop. Why would we want the brain to stop? That's what it does. What we need to do is put a bit of gap between it and us. So when I used to sit down to meditate, 0.4 of a second, my brain would be off, and then 5 minutes later, I'd realise I wasn't paying attention. At that moment, when I realised I wasn't paying attention, that is the moment we are after. But what most people do is they go, I haven't been paying attention, I'm no good at this, I will give up. No, that's the moment we're after. Bring it back, start again. Make that 5 minutes, 4 minutes 59, 4 minutes 58. And what you'll find is eventually you'll get to the point where it's, we've wandered for 10 seconds, came back. What's a practical application of this? You've got a piece of paper at work, old school, or you may be even reading a web page. You get to the bottom of the page and you think to yourself, wow, I don't remember a single word of what I just read. Why? Because you started to read and your mind went elsewhere, this is boring. You get to the bottom, I didn't pay attention. That exercise that we give to kids, I would suggest adults as well, will help you through that.
Well, I mean, there's been so much in this conversation, Darren, and thank you so much. It's been very dense, and I feel like I've really taken a lot of...
I gave too much away, didn't I?
Yeah. It's all right, I'll edit it up. It'll only be a 15-minute podcast, and you can get the rest in the book. No, but I want to grab some final thoughts from people. So I might start with Danette. Danette, did you have any final thoughts on today's conversation and mindset mastery?
So I loved the distinction about the thinking patterns. So the two types of thinking patterns, we want something that I don't have, or not wanting what I do have. I just thought that was really, really fascinating. And I really loved the bit about the brain and body instrument. So actually becoming aware of those sensations, and rather than them sort of running us, we become conscious of them and let them run through us. I love it.
Yeah, it's a feeling, not a fact.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes, and thank you, Danette. Great questions as well. It's been great stuff. Grahame, I'll throw to you. Any final thoughts you had today on mindset mastery and today's conversation?
Again, like Danette, so little time. Look, I guess any podcast where particularly our guest leads with Captain Jack, you can't possibly go wrong from there. I'm Dale Pale Males. Sadly, I realised that I perhaps am one of those, and then I thought we could sort of unpack the whole unconscious bias stuff around that when we've got 25 years to do it. But the entertainment, just framing that sort of context, and for going from Jez's point and then what you shared, Darren, around the fact that our experience around entertainment has shifted quite dramatically. I thought was amazing. What else did I write? Oh, and just the whole paying attention thing. When you were talking before, Darren, about each scan, you get to the bottom of a web page for argument's sake, or you get to the last paragraph in a document and realise that you can't remember a single thing that you read, what you saw on screen. And I was, because of what goes on between my ears sometimes, but it just triggered this thought about, and we haven't got time to address this today, but I'd really love to get your thoughts on the practice, if it is a thing, of a lot of people online to... And for those of you who are already doing it on the recording of this podcast, stop it. Go back to normal speed now. Why are we running videos at 2x, 3 times the normal speed? Is it because it's enhancing the learning opportunity, or is it simply because we just want to get to the end of it sooner?
No, it actually makes it easier to understand. So if you did slow it down after Grahame said, you've got my permission to go back faster. So we talk about 140 words per minute. We listen somewhere in the vicinity of 400 words a minute. we think somewhere in the vicinity of 900 words a minute. So if you're listening to a podcast or an audio book at the normal pace, you have got so much mental real estate to fill that your brain goes, oh, I'm going to go over here. And you don't pay attention. So if you speed it up, you have the ability, you're drawn back more quickly.
Brilliant. So thank you, because I now know something that I didn't before, and it changes the value that I place on the chipmunks considerably.
Yes, thank you, Grahame, and great insights and questions. Always a pleasure to have you on. I think my biggest insight is that I've got to work on a good Jack Sparrow impersonation for the next time we're on. I think,
Hashtag I made an impact.
That's it, exactly. Got to revisit the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. It's been a while. But yeah, no, Darren, this has been very good. And I like that so many of these questions started going in one direction and then you just immediately gave us a right-hand turn and we just started going the other way. So I thought that was really good. Darren, did you have any final thoughts that you wanted to share about mindset mastery or anything else that you want to touch on before we get to the end of the conversation?
Yeah, there's three things I'll say. First of all, mindset mastery is about living in flow and a choice and not having to do stuff. You still got to do stuff you don't want to do, but if you can remove the I don't want to do it from it, it becomes so much easier. Hashtag Jack Sparrow. 2 resources for the listeners. If you wish to get a free process on how to deactivate some sensations within your body, visit mindsetmastery.online. And there you just fill out, put your name, email address in as a short program. If you're ready to go the whole hog, go to darrenfleming.com.au. There's only one M in Fleming. darrenfleming.com.au and go to the books, and I'm currently doing free shipping on the books across Australia. If you're in Japan, the Mindset Mastery Japanese edition is up there as well in all good bookstores.
And it looks very cool. I will say I saw a picture of it and it's got a kind of very cool look to it. So great work, Darren.
Yeah. They couldn't have, they wanted someone Japanese looking, so they had to caricature my face to put it on the book.
That's amazing. Can I also ask, just before we dive out of here, how did you choose to have it go to Japan? How did that end up happening?
So last year, I went and studied at Oxford. I just like saying that. And when I was at Oxford, there was this quiet Japanese guy at the front of the room. And we got talking and told him what I did. And he went and downloaded from Amazon a copy of the book. Don't do that. Buy from me. I make more money. He got halfway through reading the book and said, Darren, can I publish this in Japan? And yeah, why not? The book has got a lot of Buddhist philosophies in it. So he's just gone, this is going to work really well in the biggest Buddhist market in the world. And it certainly has. And there's a big corporate Buddhist who put a big Dr. Mabachi, I think is how you pronounce his name, on the endorsement on the front cover. And I showed the book to an Australian Japanese lady, just a photo of the cover. And she went, oh, I can read this. And she went, how did you get him to endorse the book? I don't know. Who is he? So I don't read Japanese.
Well, that's good. It sounds like you've kind of got like the, it's the equivalent of like an Iron Chef of like Buddhism or something. So that's a pretty good step.
That's probably the best way to do it. Yeah.
Great.
Mindset Mastery, Iron Chef.
That would be pretty good. Yeah. Well, we'll think about this. We'll pitch it to, I think Netflix is looking to buy some interesting shows like this. So maybe we can, we'll see what's going on there.
Board.
Great. And Darren, I'm sure people have listened there and you've laid out where they can get the book, ideally from your website, so that you can make the most money from it. Let's help you out there. But where else can people reach out to you, Darren? Where's the best spots for people to, if they've listened to this?
Yeah, LinkedIn is where I play socially. So that's probably the best spot. And yeah, if you like mindset, have people who need to be more productive, I show people how to do that. Just one small story. I worked with a sporting clay target shooting club. I gave them one of the mindset mastery methodology techniques to practice for 2 weeks. Over 2 weeks, they had a 13% increase in their accuracy without firing an extra shot. That was statistically significant to P's less than 0.001, so like 100% according to it. Why? Because I showed them how to stop fighting themselves when they needed to perform. How would it be for your organisations if they had a 13% increase in 2 weeks?
Well, fantastic, Darren. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Grahame and Danette as well, always a pleasure. And I think we've had such a good conversation today. I want to thank you all. I want to thank everybody that's been sharing all this stuff. Our channel's really been growing. So thank to everybody that's been sharing, and have a magical week, everybody.